Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Southpaw. If you're going to be seeing a movie like Southpaw, a film that's more of like a prestige awardsy kind of picture, you're really seeing it for the performances. And Jake Gyllenhaal is really extraordinary in this film. He does not disappoint at all. However, the storytelling is almost like someone picking cliche-ridden plot points out of prestige and boxing movies and kind of splattering them all over the place to get them to work. Now, the direction by Anton Fuqua is kind of done in more of like a poppy prestige movie way, which is a little better than most prestige films that are really just going full prestige, and you never go full prestige. Is semi-entertaining even though you know all these plot points before, whether it's a tale of redemption, a fight back to the top, trying to get his daughter back, trying to get some honor for the death of his wife, trying to reform himself as a better man. These are all things that we've seen in other prestige films, and especially boxing movies before. And this film, in terms of all of those plot points, is absolutely nothing new at all. It's not original in the slightest, but it's done in such a poppy action movie B way, and with Jake Gyllenhaal's performance, I was kind of into it while I was watching it, even though the more I thought about the plot, the more laughable it became, and I don't really think it would hold up to a second viewing. Jake Gyllenhaal, who plays Billy Hope, who is a world light heavyweight fighter, and at the beginning of the film becomes the world light heavyweight champion, and is an incredible professional boxer. He has gone 43-0. Him and his wife Mo, played by Rachel McAdams, have an amazing life together. His manager 50 Cent has carved out an amazing career for him. As he's speaking at a charity event, there's a commotion between him and another boxer who wants to box him because he's never been hit by a real man or something. Then during the commotion, a gun goes off and kills his wife, leaving him alone with his daughter, and he tries to do a few of the fights through an HBO deal that he has. Unfortunately, he doesn't do the fight very well, and because he hits a referee, he's suspended from boxing and making any revenue from boxing for a year, in which he loses his house because he didn't take very good care of his finances, which only really comes out after the whole punching the referee thing, but I guess like maybe there was so much coming in before that it didn't matter, but whatever. So then he loses his house, but right before, since he shows dangerous behavior and got, I think, kind of high or drunk or something and drove his car into a tree in an attempt to kill himself and had a handgun, his daughter is put into child protective services, and he has to turn his life around and get a job to prove that he can have his parental rights back, and he gets a job at Forrest Whitaker's gym as he was a former boxing trainer and tries to hopefully have him train him, but during the day he does the maintenance at the gym while he tries to recuperate himself so he can get back and get his parental rights for his daughter and hopefully become a great boxer once again. The two great performances of this movie is Jake Gyllenhaal and Forrest Whitaker, and their scenes together are great. It's lovely seeing them together and act off one another, and they're really putting their all into this performance. I don't think this is the kind of performance Jake Gyllenhaal wise is the kind of performance you'd really think of him as. It's not a stereotypical Jake Gyllenhaal performance. I think something like Nightcrawler is more accustomed to what we've seen him in, so it's a really transformative performance for him. He's more known for his thinking man performances than his strongman performances. It shows the versatility to him as an actor and that he can really do it. I think everyone's been really impressed with him as an actor in recent years, and this just continues that path along. Forrest Whitaker almost like acts like a very reliable character actor in this point. He's kind of brings it all in that reliable way. It feels like effortless. Rachel McAdams, unfortunately, is underutilized. What all these performances kind of stick out like a sore thumb, because this film is directed in kind of almost like a B-movie poppy way by Anton Fuqua, and a lot of the performances, particularly 50 Cent's performance, 50 Cent feels like he's kind of having fun in a video-on-demand movie, but he doesn't feel like he's in a prestige film, which is kind of an odd juxtaposition. Sometimes you see two actors in a movie and there's a reason they're doing different styles of performances, but there isn't really a reason. This is the best 50 Cent can do, and I kind of like it, but it's a bizarre juxtaposition because it feels like Jake Gyllenhaal's really doing the prestige thing. He's really tried, he's really trained, and 50 Cent comes in as the manager. And so one scene where he confronts him as he's trying to make his eventual comeback, as he offers him a fight later in the film, it feels like 50 Cent's having like too much like dumb fun with it. He's like in the fun way that you cash a paycheck in a B kind of on-demand movie, which I'm sure 50 Cent knows that thrill very well. I mean, I like 50 Cent, it's not like Jake Gyllenhaal's clearly trying to go for an Oscar in a very like Oscar baity kind of way, but 50 Cent's just like haha. It feels more like Candy Shop 50 Cent, like he's just there for the money and to have a good time. That's kind of a lot of the smaller parts in this film. They're just kind of like doing this B-movie thing, whereas you have Jake Gyllenhaal doing the more serious prestige thing. It makes it kind of unique in its prestigeness. Anton Fuqua, this isn't a movie that I feel like he's going for best director. He just wants it to play like a cheapo kind of boxing film that somehow got a movie star in it. Sometimes Anton Fuqua over-directs scenes, particularly the boxing scenes. He does that boring thing that modern boxing movies do. They're like, let's shoot it like an HBO thing. I'm like, oh great, why don't I just fucking watch an HBO boxing match instead of a movie? It's boring as all hell. Those aren't great shots. Yeah, I'm sure everyone was watching Raging Bull and went, hey, but what if this was shot like TV? That would be better. No, it wouldn't. That's stupid. I hate that boxing movies do that. I like when boxing movies were shot like movies, not like boxing TV events. I don't really get what the point is to that overall. It just feels very boring. Supposedly they actually got real people who shoot the HBO boxing things to shoot this movie, which I think that's a little creative, to be honest, to actually get the people. I don't know if someone's done that before. Maybe they have. And when he would actually have fun in the boxing ring, those felt very epic, but then he'd cut around like crazy and do all this stylized crap. Sometimes he'd do stylized things or like, feels like sometimes you're trying too hard to make something interesting. But that's kind of the thing with this movie in terms of its direction, is it's kind of trying to do too much. And if you look at the storytelling, and this is actually the first script by Kurt Sutter, who wrote Sons of Anarchy and The Shield. This is his first film script. I don't know those shows, but I've heard they're well written, and this very much is not as well written. There's just too many cliches it uses, and it has storylines like there's a friend in his entourage that kind of just pops up spontaneously when the movie needs him. There's too many threads and characters that the movie just doesn't need but keeps bringing back, and it almost felt like the film should be a lot simpler to be truly effective, but they overstuffed it with things. So it felt like Fuqua was playing off the screenplay in a little bit of a way where he's like, well, what if we just have this stylized sequence of his daughter jumping off a trampoline, which doesn't really make any sense. I mean, there's a lot of things like that where if you think about them, it doesn't really work. And this script is just kind of odd because his whole road to redemption is like a couple months. It's suspension for a year. They have overturned early so he can do this big epic boxing match at the end. So if he had not lost all his money or saved a little bit of it, he could have just gotten an apartment with HBO Go and watched all the Sopranos and then trained a little bit, and he would have been cool. I wish like maybe the suspension like could have been up and he could have gone for the review board. It could have done more of that stuff, but it had to go through like, let's get a new even though the new trainer stuff worked, it felt like the film was just playing too much into those cliches without really understanding how to use them for the story. There are good Oscar prestige films, and this film knows it's doing it and tries to do it in more of a poppy way, which I kind of appreciate since most audiences kind of think Oscar prestige films are boring as all hell, and I can't really blame them. And this was originally developed for Eminem, which kind of explains the whole daughter thing and the wife being dead thing also, I guess. Eventually it like became this movie somehow. It does feel like a film that went through a lot of script revisions. It felt like maybe there was a more simpler Southpaw movie in there at some point, but they kept adding things and adding things. It does want to be a very poppy movie, but also want to be a prestige film. Is probably why it's so messy. It just isn't very streamlined, and for boxing movies to really work, The Champ or Rocky or something, they really have to be more simpler. That's when they really work. But all these things going on between it and things that would come up and come back in almost like a very random, and this probably works for the movie at this point way, that just didn't really do it any favors. I think Southpaw is one of those films where while you're watching it, you won't really think about how kind of dumb it is, but then later when you're like, oh wait, so he really wasn't doing that for that long? Did he really have to be the janitor of the gym? Like, that feels a little too much. There are too many very obvious like Oscar baity scenes from Gyllenhaal. Gyllenhaal's good at the Oscar bait thing, and so far I haven't seen too many Oscar baity performances this year, so it seems a little refreshing in July. In November, I don't know if I'll feel the same way, but as of right now, it feels a little refreshing. He's kind of like the real reason to see the movie. It's not great at being a B movie, it's just directed in a B movie way. I do like that Fuqua did that, because most of the time when you think of prestige films, you think of a director who's really overwrought in terms of what he's doing, and I didn't get the impression Fuqua thought that much of himself. It felt like he was kind of directing a film that eventually would be sold on bootleg, and I think most directors are directing a film like it's going to be on a special collector's edition Blu-ray. I like his direction in some ways, but other times he just over stylized it. This film just would over overdo it in a lot of ways, and maybe that is kind of Gyllenhaal's performance, because Oscar baity performances are all about overdoing it. In some ways he did overdo it. I like some of his boxing scenes. It was a fairly compelling kind of prestige boxing movie, but it's just one that I do not think would hold up to a second viewing, as it didn't hold up to me thinking about it later, which kind of tells you everything you need to know about it. It's still like a film that while you're watching it, it's enjoyable enough. A movie that I was still like not really totally engrossed in, because like you can't really get engrossed in it because you're like, oh yeah, I've seen that before, and you're just like kind of in agreement, like, yeah, I know where this is going. And that's a dull experience. It was kind of like a dull, entertaining B-movie experience, which sometimes I don't mind. Usually I like those more as an action movie and not like a prestige boxing film. So I kind of like, I guess, that it's a little different. That this isn't the kind of video on demand movie that I watched and I'm like, sure, okay, so I can see a cool action sequence. The boxing stuff was cool. It wasn't cool enough that it was worth it like in the B-movie sense, but I guess if most B-movies, they're action movies, the main thing is to get to the action set piece. I guess in this, it's to get to Jake Gyllenhaal's amazing performance as an actor. In some ways, prestige movies are kind of like B-movies because they're not really that smart. It's like cheap beer. It gives you exactly kind of what you want and what you're asking it to give you, and that's what prestige movies do. They move you and show you how someone grew and changed the world or some shit. And then there's a great performance and all that. And it's like a B-movie. It's like you see Dolph Lundgren kick somebody in the face and then shoot a machine gun, and you're fine, and it gives you exactly what you want. Fuqua understands how to do Southpaw because he understands how to do a cheap beer kind of a movie, because you're only doing cheap beer because you just want to get drunk, and that's all you're really asking for. You don't want any taste. You don't want anything behind it. You don't want it to be too deep or too great or anything like that. And Southpaw is not really demanding you do it. If you are looking for that, you're going to be disappointed. But if you're looking for like a B boxing movie, it's not so bad at it. I don't think this is one of those classic boxing films, because a classic boxing film like Rocky, or that, I think it was called The Champ with Wallace Beery, I've seen those films several times, or Raging Bull, and I'll probably see them several times throughout my entire life. Whereas Southpaw, if I saw it again, I might start laughing because I know exactly what's going to come and I know how stupid it's going to be. It works in a very disposable B-movie way where it really shouldn't be held up to scrutiny or even like used as a leftover and microwaved again, because it's not going to hold up. This is really kind of a one-time use kind of a movie, and then you just need to back away and enjoy the time you had with it. So if you have seen Southpaw and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.